Thank you. And just before we go to a motion for second reading, I'll just clarify the recess we took. We were trying to get some clarification on a question that a councillor had, but we think that if there are any questions or comments, discussion, it would be best suited to come out after second reading. Typically, when a motion occurs for second reading, we can then have discussion on the motion and discussion on the project that is concerned with this motion. So I will turn to Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that Council give second reading to bylaw number 24-03, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 14-11.
Thank you. Now that we have a motion for second reading, we can have discussion and debate. Are there any comments that councillors have or questions? Councillor Wiley.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. I really appreciated the points raised tonight by the neighbors. But as a councillor, it's my duty to consider the pros and cons of any motion that's before us. And in this case, once again, I think the advantages of approving this zoning change is far outweighs the negatives or the concerns about traffic. That isn't to say the concerns about traffic aren't real and legitimate, but what it is to say is that our inventory of attainable housing in Strathmore is quite literally zero. And there are many people in this town that cannot afford to live anywhere. I was looking at basement suites before this meeting, and to have a single room, no kitchen, no bathroom, just a single room in someone's basement is $800 a month in Strathmore. Again, that would be a shared kitchenette, a shared bathroom, just $800 a month. And here we have a private investment coming in with their own private money that's looking at developing attainable housing for people in Strathmore, 50 units of attainable housing. We're in a real housing crisis, and the last thing I want is for our town to get a reputation as a group that puts up red tape, puts up delays, costs developers money. When my administration assures me that the infrastructure is there to support, when I see an independent engineering firm say that it can support the increase of traffic, I think in this case, even though there are some small concerns, I am in favor of this motion. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Worship. I am in favor of the motion, and I certainly don't detract from the concerns that have been brought up by the people that have spoken to us today. I can tell you that I live across the street from an elementary school of more than 500 children on a very narrow street, and I understand movement and necessity of parking and how densifying a population can cause challenges. My next door neighbor is a child care center, so school on one side, child care center on the other, and surrounded by densification. I'm somebody who's lived here for decades and watched a community change, so I understand the pain that goes along with that. I also know that communities adapt, and I wish there were two connectors where I live. We do have a four-way stop, which is slightly better. And I also was very gratified to hear our administration talk about the access to flashing beacons to mitigate the safety and walkability for persons that are facing densification. One of the biggest things that makes me supportive of this motion is what it will do to economic development in the community. And one of the things that we hear from our businesses in the community is that they cannot attract employees in the numbers that they need because there is no attainable housing. So this does supply some amount of affordable housing and a significant amount of attainable housing. And so I think that this does really assist in our economic development in terms of allowing our businesses to meet their needs. I do think that from Mr. Keeling's point of view, that there is going to come a time in the future where the town is going to have to seriously look at the whole idea of neighborhood commercial in the center of a community and an urban space. But that's a case for another day and probably for another council. But, Your Worship, I am in favor of this, and I want to say that I don't discount the concerns of the people. I hope that they will continue bringing forward their concerns if they are exacerbated by this build in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, and if I could follow up on your points, as we go into the future, I think as Jamie had mentioned, when we work the municipal development plans for the town as we go into the future, we can make decisions based on how to plan the whole of the community. And to me, I know there are concerns with traffic. We have a third-party traffic study that is done by a reputable company, and it's near two connector roads. It's near Thomas Drive and Centennial. If you're ever going to put a facility like this, it should be near two connector roads. It shouldn't be in a residential area where there are narrower streets and a difficult time to find parking. We have two major roadways that this facility will be a part of. And with the desperate situation for people who have no place to live, I will be supporting this bylaw change. Deputy Mayor Langmaid.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'll keep this quick because I think my co-councilors have said many of my ideas. One of the planning principles that I'm keeping in mind here is that when we look at any parcel of land, I'm looking at what is the highest and best use of that parcel of land. And for me, right now, that parcel of land is not meeting that need as it is currently vacant. So this, to me, a development like this does contribute and move us towards the highest and best use of that piece of land. I do hear the concerns around traffic. I go through that. It's funny. I go through the Thomas and Centennial Drive intersection every Wednesday on my way to council. And tonight, I sat at that intersection for maybe about a minute or so while I waited, because I'm a cautious driver and I take my time, and I was waiting for people to go by, and I thought, oh, that's a bit of a wait. And then I thought again and thought, oh, there's no way that would be any shorter in the city. So, I keep in mind that our idea of traffic in Strathmore is relative to what we recognize in the rest of the town. That being said, Thomas Drive is a beautiful collector road. It's quite wide. There's the potential for development there, and that's something for us certainly to consider in the future, is how do we make that road the best it can possibly be. And that's something that I'll be keeping my mind on in the future. But in terms of housing is desperately needed in this community. I can't think of a better spot for this, just in general. And I'm going to be supporting the project this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any comments from home other than the ones that came from Councillor Wiley? Any further comments or discussion? I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion is carried. And Councillor Peterson.
Move that council give third reading to bylaw number 24-03, being a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw number 14-11.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion is carried. We move now to item 8.2, land use bylaw, amending bylaw number 24-07 on page 81. And this is for first reading and to send it to a public hearing. Good evening, or welcome back, Kate. Good evening.
Thank you.
I've
Good
seen you
evening
for the
again.
first time.
Good evening again. Today, I would like to present an application for the land use redesignation of 62 Lakeside Boulevard. Firstly, I want to highlight that the external circulation will conclude this Friday, May 3rd. At present, we have no concerns regarding this project. Currently, the site is predominantly vacant with only one old garage standing. It falls under the land use R1 single detached residential district and the downtown overlay district situated between Lakeside Boulevard and the Village Way. Adjacent to the Strathmore Municipal Library, the site is surrounded by single detached homes to the south and manufactured homes to the northwest. The developer's proposal includes the construction of semi-detached dwelling and garage on the specified land lot. This combined development aims to optimize land usage while ensuring residents have convenient access to parking facilities. In summary, the proposed land use redesignation for a semi-detached dwelling has the potential to address housing demand and enhance the area's livability and vibrancy. Our staff believe this development will make a positive contribution to Strathmore's social, economic, and environmental landscape. Additionally, the location is deemed suitable for the project development. We are recommending first reading tonight, and that Council scheduled a public hearing for June 5th at 6 p.m. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. Council, we're looking for a motion for first reading. Deputy Mayor Langmaid.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd like to move that council give first reading to bylaw number 24-07, being a bylaw to amend land use bylaw number 14-11, and that council direct administration to schedule a public hearing for the bylaw number 24-07 on June 5th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion is carried. We move now to item 9, business, 9.1, asset management program update on page 110. And Andre, welcome back. You're like the hired gun for Strathmore. Have you ever been called the hired gun?
No, although I don't think so. I think the Andre of high school would be very amused by the thought. That, so I'll take what I can get. 1 second. I apologize. Okay. So we okay. So, good evening. My name is Andre Aloa. I am the Asset Management Officer for the town of Strathmore, and it's my pleasure tonight to speak to you about a report that I produced, which is on the Asset Management Program, and an update with the activities that have happened since January 2023. And I think it's also worthwhile to say, just to get it out of the way, my comments today will be through the chair. Right. So what are we going to be discussing today? So the general outline for today's presentation, I'll do a brief introduction, followed by a review of the report, and then I'll allow time for questions. And of course, if you have questions during the presentation, please let me know. Interrupt, I think that's fine. So what are our objectives for this presentation? I feel like we should always have some sort of goal. So first, it's just to be aware of asset management in general. Second, of course, to ensure that we've reviewed the report. And finally, to inspire any conversation. So the asset management program deals with creating a system. And I've made jokes before, the system is not software. It's a system that deals with procedures and how we do things. It deals with people. It is about the processes that we take and how we do our work. It is built for people to support people. People like this, like that, this, and even if you allow me, maybe that. But let's not get into that debate. So it's a system that we're creating for what? What does it produce? And very simply, since we are a town, a municipality, we are providing service to the community. And we provide a wide range of services. Members within the organization are studying the services that we provide And when I counted it earlier today, we have around 99 different categories of service. That's a significant amount. I mean, it's everything from family and community support services to municipal enforcement to water services. It goes on and on and on, and you're very well familiar with that. And all of these services that we provide to our community, well, they require assets. And so it's up to our organization to ensure that we are getting the value that we need out of the assets that we own and that we're managing. And above you is or above me, both of us, is the definition of what is asset management. It's the coordinated activity of an organization to realize value from assets. In a very mature organization, they consider many things assets. So people, labor, those things are considered assets. Of course, infrastructure is an asset. Even a brand is an asset. But ultimately, it is our duty to ensure that we're gaining the value that we require from our assets and as we manage them. And then I guess the question is, how do we know that we are actually getting value from our assets? And so that's where we have to tie it back to what we want to do as an organization. What is our vision? What are our priorities? What are our goals? We have to ensure that the actions that we're taking on a day-to-day basis align with the goals that we're trying to achieve. And we've outlined those here. So where do you start when it comes to an asset management program and creating a system to ensure that we're gaining value from our assets? Well, where we should start, or where I argue we should start, is by adopting a policy. And that's what we did in January 2023. And that's also where the review of our asset management program update begins. So just to touch on that for a second, the asset management update is this document is attached in the agenda. As I said, it covers the activities from January 2023 to present day. It talks about the current activities also that we are undertaking in the next 3 to 6 months. We hope to accomplish those activities. And it also provides an update to the asset management program roadmap. So, as I said, the first thing that we discussed was a policy. And why do we have to, or why is it a good idea to have a policy? It's because we are making a commitment as an organization. We're committing to asset management methodologies. We're committing to manage our assets in a way that is standardized and has, in a sense, kind of been solved by different organizations such as the International Standards Organization, IPWEA, IIFF, a whole bunch of organizations understand how an organization such as ours should sort of tackle the problem of managing all of these assets. The other reason that we have a policy is because it is a document that will provide the organization some guidance. And ultimately, what it is allowing us to do is it is allowing us to create an asset management plan. And what I hope by the end of 2025 is that we have an asset management plan. And all of these steps that we've been taking in our asset management program is to facilitate our staff and this organization to create asset management plans to better prepare for expenditures in the future. So we passed the policy. And next, once we passed the policy, we decided we should have some training. So we went around and we discussed how asset management relates to each and every single department in the town. Training sessions were done with each department, and the policy was related to those departments, so they understood what is the context, why are we doing this. There was also a lunch and learn series that we did for staff, and it taught those people that attended, how alignment is required between council's objectives, our operational activities, and strategic planning. So we did that, and I think actually it was kind of fun, and people enjoyed it, and they began to see how things fit when it comes to asset management and how they operate on a day-to-day. The next step that we took is to better capture, maintain, and disseminate our information. We needed to do some upgrades to our systems. And I know that I say systems aren't software, but in this case, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So yes, it is related. I appreciate that. So we updated our GIS, our asset management software called CityWorks, and we created a whole bunch of integrations. And that, again, is for our organization to better be able to create asset management plans. If we're going to create asset management plans, we need to have information that's easily accessible, that has been captured in a way that is effective and quick. And that was necessary in sort of the strategic steps that we were taking, so upgrades were done. Next, we looked at our processes. The title of that document probably isn't the best. It's regrettable. It says Infrastructure Replacement and Valuation Procedural Document. I think really that's just one of a few that we created. And ultimately what we are getting at is, in order to create an asset management plan, we need to be confident in our data. And a better way to be confident in our data is if we know how we are getting it, how we are producing it. And we have to codify it, or at least write it down, and ensure that it is in a procedural document somewhere. So again, this was another step that we took to ensure that in the future, we'll be able to create asset management plans. Data, the data itself, we had to go through. There are some data sets that we had low confidence in. So we had to go through, review what we had, make sure that it was complete, make sure that it was accurate. We had to document how we were updating the data. Again, that's important. And now with it, we're slightly more confident in our data. And every sort of month, every quarter, we're improving in that confidence. And what you see right in front of you is actually a slide or a screenshot of a system that we can now use because we did those aforementioned updates. So that was part of a vehicle audit that we did. Using mobile technology, we were able to go around, collect all of the vehicle information, create reports. It's web-based, and it made the whole process that much easier to communicate, not only with the people that were conducting the audit, but then people who were interested afterwards. And we've actually used sort of the results of that on several occasions. So, and again, that is to ensure that the data that we're using that will go into an asset management plan, we have confidence in. So that brings us to our current projects. So again, these are the projects that we're currently working on and that we hope to complete within the next 3 to 6 months. So the first one that we'll be working on is training, more training. So before, we discussed sort of a high-level understanding of asset management. And that's great, and it's important. People need to understand the why. But this training will be focusing on budgeting. And how do we create maybe a 10-year, 5-year, whatever that period is, capital replacement plan? And what goes into that capital replacement plan? And obviously there's a lot of data, and that's why we did the steps that we did that I've sort of outlined. There's a lot of data that goes into that, and this training will teach our staff how to sort of take the information that they've got currently to produce an asset management plan. The next one is really not exciting at all. It's called a data dictionary. And the data dictionary is a document that is speaking directly to what we're creating with an asset registry. So the asset registry is a data set where we have all of our asset information. And in order to be confident in that information, it needs to be documented. So the data dictionary will go through all of the details that we have in our asset registry, and it will detail how often are we updating it, who's responsible for updating it, and if there's a conflict, who should be the authority. So that is a very important document, but incredibly boring to read. It's like reading a dictionary. And that we hope to finish within the next 3 to 6 months. And again, that's also for an asset management plan to have that confidence. And finally, and maybe this is more exciting, I'm not sure, is a centralized asset registry, and it's what we're calling our data hub. So in front of you, you see a screenshot. We're presently in the midst of creating this data hub, and when we set out to create it, we had a goal, and that was to create a data resource that is well communicated and documented, available to all the appropriate staff, which we can use for strategic planning. So the idea behind it is when people are doing their capital replacement plans, those budget owners will be able to go to this online resource. It's internal, and they'll be able to quickly get the information that they need. They've got the authoritative data set, and then they'll be able to do the strategic planning that is required. And so that we're hoping to actually present to the Asset Management Steering Committee on May 16th. And speaking of the Asset Management Steering Committee, we often go over this asset management roadmap. So the so the asset management roadmap is really just a visual display of the activities that we're planning to take over the long term. We created this, we started this document in 2022, and we're reviewing it maybe once a year. So when we met in February, this was brought to the Asset Management Steering Committee, and the tasks that we sort of outlined were approved. And just to go over it, I suppose there are several things that we've completed, and I think probably we should just focus on what is ahead of us. So we've got the asset registry, which I hope to finish by the end of Q2 2024. We've got something that's called measures. So technically we already, so the idea here is we need to establish some key performance indicators for the asset management program itself. And before, what we were using was something called the Asset Management Readiness Scale. It's a tool that was provided by, sorry, the acronym is failing me, the Canadian municipalities. It's the MAMP program. Sorry. It wasn't the Open Government one, no. It's a third-party, non-governmental organization that was getting funding. No, they provided a program that was called the MAMP program. No, that's okay, I appreciate the help. So the MAMP program gave funding to municipalities across Canada, and part of what they had to do was use this tool. Yeah, and so we were using the tool, but I think right now we're getting to a point where we're sort of outgrown it. So what I would like to do in the May 16th Asset Management Steering Committee meeting is take this to them and say we should probably come up with new measures. So that's number 3 there, and what we'll be working on. Number 7, which is kind of starting in this quarter, is the creation of asset management plans. And so that really begins with the training. We can't expect our staff to know how to put them together if they haven't been trained. I don't think it's fair. So that will start June 3rd. June 3rd is the first one, and the last one is June 11th. And that also is going to be tied in with the budgeting process. So again, the training is going to be focusing on sort of the more budgeting aspects of how to take asset management methodologies and create a capital replacement plan. And then finally, that fourth one is council. And so I have a desire to maybe provide council some better training with a bit of flair and maybe a cell phone and some interactive polls. But I think that is probably out of place looking at it. It's likely more appropriate to occur fourth quarter 2025. So those are the things that we are looking forward to in the next few years. And again, this is all an ongoing process. Again, it's a system, and we're moving forward. It's It's a system. It's not software, but it is a system that involves people. And speaking of people, I probably would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to thank Jamie Dugdale for all of his guidance over the last year and a little bit. I should also thank senior leadership for supporting me and supporting the asset management program. Also, the Asset Management Steering Committee has been very patient with me, and I really appreciate them for that. And lastly, I work very closely with a colleague, Seth Whitney, and he has been a tremendous asset to me, and I want to thank him for all of his good work. So that's that.
Thank you. Are you ready for some questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Councillor Mitzner.
Okay, so number 6, Tor Road, you didn't explain that one, and it says in here 1 to 3 year roadmap. So I might be off course here, but when are we going to have maps available for the public online or hard copy?
Good question. So that refers to specifically, so the TOR is the terms of reference. And the terms of reference is a document that we wrote that is the guiding principles for the Asset Management Steering Committee. And the Asset Management Roadmap is that, that visual that I showed. For this program. No. Yeah.
Is I'm imagining our various infrastructure is part of the asset management. So would your department be involved in this too, as far as tracking? Like, I'm always worried about Councillor Peterson living in Poverty Flats, and her pipes, her infrastructure is in need of. So do you guys track that as part of the asset management, as far as when things have to be? When things have to be replaced, like does that fit into this as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So through the chair, what the program actually does is it determines the optimal time for replacement.
Okay.
Like, we may say we're replacing this in 10 years, but this program will show us that we should actually replace it in 5 years or 15 years. It will maximize the taxpayer investment in the assets. That's the overarching theme of a good asset
So it's
management.
incredibly important as far as our future planning.
Completely. Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm grasping this more. I think I have Councillor Peterson and then Deputy Mayor.
So I first of all want to offer my gratitude for the fact that you're waiting till 2025 to undertake that huge task of trying to educate councils on asset management. I know that you have maybe downplayed the importance of software in this, but and also have tried to be easy on us in terms of how that rolls out. Is CityWorks going to be able to do the job for us, or are we looking at doing some software updates that will manifest in a way that looks to some of the future considerations that council's talking about? I'm talking specifically about how we would look at resourcing those things like drought mitigation in terms of an asset management capacity from within the community, or people that you talked about. So how would we build in future stakeholders into that? And I know that I've used I think it's Escri Ag GIS system you know, that does all the work on geography, you know, that it has this immense capacity to, and I know that it can build off of CityWorks, and I'm wondering if you're looking at anything like that down the road.
So currently, we do have ideas for upgrades or further upgrades for
Yeah.
CityWorks. I think, you know, if we can just take a step back, I feel like in general, no software solution is perfect.
One off, yeah.
Yeah, there's no silver bullet. But what needs to be focused on when we're looking at software is interoperability.
Yeah.
And I feel like there is a lot of interoperability with CityWorks. And ultimately, I think what needs to sort of guide that is an understanding of what are our objectives and what are our needs.
And performance outcomes. So I guess, you know, when we were initially, it was in 2019 when CityWorks was introduced to us as a council. We went through some significant training, and I found it really fascinating to look at it. I found that maybe on the performance outcome side, it was a little bit light, and that it didn't lend itself well necessarily to rurally based economic development process, I guess. That's what I saw, and that's why I'm asking questions about, you know, do you have capacity for expansion? And you've answered that question. You've said yes. And I think about it from that people point of view, which you pointed out at the front end. I see the fine hand of Mr. Dugdale and in the comments that come out and from our leadership that talks about the coalition of the willing. And so how do you build that stakeholder engagement into an asset management process like CityWorks, where you can magnify the assets of your greater community, and you can look at coalitions, and you can look at strategic advantages through IDPs and ICFs with small villages and neighboring municipalities. And so, I really see just huge and tremendous hope in asset management road mapping, and I'm very appreciative of Councillor Mitzner's insistence on keeping that in front of council. But yeah, I'm really excited to learn more, and so if there's opportunities for council to have updates about it in small portions, because that's all I can absorb in terms of this, it would be nice.
Deputy Mayor Langmaid.
Thank you very much. Never underestimate my nerdiness for data. You and me, fellow data nerds. And the program I think you were looking for was the Municipal Asset Management Program between the Government in Canada and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities.
FCM, thank you.
FCM. The only question I have for you tonight is there one piece of data or an efficiency or some sort of discovery that you've identified that you can share, understanding that we can't share everything all the time, but so far that gets you really excited? Like, what is there something that you've discovered through this process that you've gone, hey, this is awesome, and we can already kind of do this, or a piece of data that you didn't realize we had or didn't realize we need, anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, not to put him on the spot, but I think what we have in the, what we call the Road Asset Management Plan has been done very well. So thank you, Ethan, for that. And it was a delight to work with a data set that has been so looked at so closely. And of course, I think the difference with that compared to other data sets is we as a council, as a community, have decided to invest in that data set. We've decided we need to understand our roads, and we need to have a better handle on the condition that they're in. And so we will need more of that, and we will likely need more resources. And I think, depending on the desire, we can expedite things. Of course we can, but it's resources, and we're working with the resources that we've got, and we've come very far. And when you see stuff like the ramp, it makes things that much easier. So yeah, that was a pleasant surprise of opening up a spreadsheet and going, oh, good. Thankfully, yeah.
That's an awesome feeling. No, thank you. Asset management is a wonderful thing. Is a really important thing. I honestly wish someone would come in and kind of take an asset management approach to my house and just give me that roadmap. That would be amazing. But that's a bit over my capabilities. The hard part about asset management is getting other people who maybe aren't quite data nerds like you and I to get really excited about asset management, and that was the purpose of my question. Like, what's something what's something I can share that might connect with someone? So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
I was just thinking about, not for an answer for today, but when we revisit our strategic plan, it would be really interesting to look at the role, just from a very perfunctory way, about how asset management fits in in the strategic plan. And of course, it fits in all the categories, but should we be looking at it almost as its own focus, so that, Councillor Mitzner has talked about this vision she has, where people interested in investing in our community, so particularly in the economic development area, can come in and hit a button on a computer, and they can go and see exactly that asset management roadmap takes them to any aspect of the community that they need to see, to be able to picture themselves in the process. And I think, be really appreciative of more information from a strategic planning perspective on how that would look at some point in the future.
So briefly, typically, it's the strategic plan
That drives it,
that
yeah.
should inform
Yeah, yeah,
our asset management plans.
yeah.
And
But maybe it comes
how do
full
I
circle.
expedite? So, for example, we want to be the greenest city or the greenest town in all of Alberta. So, that's sort of a vision. And then, okay, what are we going to strategize? We might strategize our parks or that kind of thing. So now we've sort of set these guidelines.
Right.
And so if we know what the guidelines are, then we can better resource administration to meet that vision, to meet that goal.
And
So
in closing that circle, then how do you focus on performance management and measurement? And how, in our constituents, at our level,
yeah,
which is very different from the operation perspective, when people come to us and say, how do I know you're doing your job?
sure. So again, that goes into some of the systems where we're recording our data, and how easily can we disseminate that information to
And
people.
our strategic plan doesn't lend itself, at this point, well to that. I can see it coming, but that performance measurement piece needs enhancement.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I think, the strategic priorities that we have are good, and administration can definitely work with them.
Oh, I know, I'm not concerned about that at all.
Oh, sorry.
They're doing their job. That's not what I'm concerned about. I'm saying that if the public says to me, when I go to your strategic plan on affordable housing, where's your report card?
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Any other comments or questions for Andre? Seeing and hearing none, thank you for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
We move now to 9.2, Drought Plan 2024. Ethan, welcome back.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm here to give an update on the current drought situation in the area, southern Alberta, the Bow River Basin. It might be a little ironic considering the weather, and I'm happy to give this presentation next week if it means it rains again, but through that I'll give an update of kind of where we're at in the province at the moment. I did update the snowpack chart in comparison to what was in your agenda package. So there has been a little bit of change over the past couple of weeks for the better. Our snowpack at the moment is slightly ahead of last year, although last year, this is pretty much the time when we started to see summer in May and the snowpack in the mountains started to melt. So whether we see that again is still to be seen, but as of April 15th, our snowpack had 11 of the 17 sites were in their normal range or above. However, Sunshine Village, which is kind of the main measuring stick for the Bow River Basin, was at one of its lowest, and at that time was about 100 millimeters below the normal range. When it comes to our reservoirs, which is also an indication of the water that will be available for the coming season, 4 of the 6 TransAlta Utilities reservoirs are at a volume lower than 40% of their capacity. So that's, a bit concerning. However, some good news is the reservoirs downstream of Calgary and Strathmore are sitting at levels ranging from 85 to even 96% of their capacity. And these are generally irrigation-based reservoirs, so like Newell and Crawling Valley. So there was an announcement a short while ago regarding memorandum of understandings between municipalities, different irrigators, and those sort of groups. The one specific to the Bow River Basin includes 3 different irrigation districts: the City of Calgary, Ducks Unlimited, Nutrien, and TransAlta. And it's basically an agreement that everybody will work together when the time is appropriate to ensure that everybody gets sufficient water for their needs on a priority basis. So when is it activated? The simple calculation is when the outlook for supply is less than what there is for demand. So what happens in those cases, and in a lot of cases, what are we doing in advance of even one of these occurring, is municipalities are asked to reduce their water usage between 5 and 10% of what they were expected to use in 2024. The key part there is that expected in 2024. We're not comparing to a previous year because we all know that growth has occurred. So comparing to a previous year is actually going to put you in a worse situation than 5 or 10%. Industry will withdraw the minimum volume they require to maintain safer and reliable operations. You'll notice Nutrien is one of the key stakeholders. They're a very large water user. However, they've been able to confirm that what water they need to maintain operations versus what their license capacity is. TransAlta, as they operate the reservoirs upstream of Calgary for multiple reasons. One, it would be flood relief, but also for the generation of power. They're going to optimize their storage as much as possible to both balance the potential for flood, but also the risk of drought. And then lastly, the irrigation districts are going to share their water proportionally based on acres. So essentially, any farmer who has irrigation access can expect to have similar amount of water as their counterparts in a different irrigation district, is the thought process behind that one. So we get our water from the City of Calgary. I think Council is well aware of that. And so what is our requirements under our master servicing agreement? So basically, if there is a water shortage and outage or conservation's in place, we're basically supposed to follow the same protocols as what the city is enacted in their jurisdiction. So if the city says that they're in a water shortage and they've enacted restrictions, we're supposed to have the same restrictions of equivalent or more stringent. So when we look at the city's water restrictions, you can see they vary over 4 stages. They go from outdoor watering and those sort of restrictions that are limited, but generally not much of an impact to residents, all the way to stage 4, where essentially any outdoor watering is restricted. When you look at our restrictions as they currently exist in the bylaw, again, we have our 4 stages, and they're not quite word for word, but they are very similar. So what is our outlook on 2024? So I'll be honest, these are my personal opinions, but the chances of a stage 1 restriction, I'd say we're probably in the 90% range. There's a good chance that we're going to get there. Stage 2 restrictions, that would be further restrictions from what we experienced last year. I'd say there's probably a 70% chance that we get there. Stage 3 restrictions, which is something that the town has not experienced in quite some time, probably not in the time since we've been connected to the City of Calgary for water. I give that a 50-50 chance at this moment. I would say the outlook at this time is looking better than it did a couple of weeks ago, but I wouldn't change the likelihood of that happening. And then stage 4, I mean, those are quite extreme restrictions. Is it possible? Absolutely, although I would say unlikely. So what are the impacts to residents? I mean, we'll see limitations on outdoor watering. That's a given. That comes with stage 1 restrictions and all the way through to stage 4. Encouragement of hand watering. This is one way that you can ensure that the water that you're using is getting put to where you're intending to use it. There's no overspray. There's no wasted water. No outdoor washing. I mean, we have facilities such as car washes and that, which are designed for that use. They minimize their use as it is. And then lastly, no decorative water features. There may not be many of these in Strathmore, but if there are ones that exist, we would ask that they not be used. What does it mean for our own operations? We'll be reducing the watering of parks. We'll focus on key areas, probably our sports fields first, and then even those might get restrictions at certain times. We'll do critical unidirectional flushing only. So this has started over the past week and a week and a half. Unidirectional flushing is occurring kind of in the Thorncliffe Center Street area of town. We didn't do this in 2023. At that time, the decision was made to hold off because of the drought situation. Although in consultation with our counterparts in Calgary and other municipalities, there's many benefits to UDF. It's not just a simple waste of water. It's one way that we maintain the quality of water. It's one way that we ensure the quality of our assets, being the pipes in the ground, are maintained. So we've decided that critical UDF, meaning only the key areas of town, are done. Typically in a 2-year period, we have done half the town. We're probably doing less than 15%. We are going to limit our vehicle washing, so we have white vehicles and they might be a little dusty throughout the summer, but that's just to limit our water use. And then we may reduce or optimize our spray park hours. That's a discussion that's still to be had, but something that's likely to be seen. So what can residents do? I mean, they can plant drought-tolerant plantings. Xeriscaping is something that we are encouraging. Shared bath water, that might be an old-school way of doing things, but hey, it does save water. Watering in the morning and evening for those who do choose to water outdoors, or what is allowed within the restrictions. Mulch gardens help conserve the water, keep it in the soils. Shorten your showers, take full laundry loads, collect your rainwater, and limit your car washes. So how do we track success? So this is specific to Strathmore. The upper and lower bounds are our 3-year averages, or 3-year minimum, 3-year maximum. The dotted line throughout the middle is our 3-year average. So if we use that 5% restriction guideline, which typically would be enacted between May and October, that would be the solid gray line. So not a significant change compared to our average. It still fits within the range of our 3-year min and 3-year max. But we would be seeing an impact. We would be ensuring that we are doing our fair share, our part for what the rest of the province is doing. And so we are tracking that month to month to see how we are tracking and to ensure if there is a need to make some adjustments. Typically we get flow data from EPCOR monthly. We've asked to now get that weekly. That will help us make decisions quicker, be more prompt in ensuring that we are conserving water when we need to, and giving everyone the right opportunity to make those decisions. So like I mentioned, the weekly water usage reports from EPCOR. We do regularly do leak detection. However, we're continuing to do that even more so, and we're always looking at operational efficiencies. And then we're also working with the City of Calgary. We're doing regular consultation. They're also doing leak detection, and through the meter that the city and the meter that we have here in town, we can confirm that they're in alignment. We're not losing water somewhere between Strathmore and Calgary and not knowing it. And then a coordinated response. We want to be sure that we're consistent with our neighbors. The last thing anybody wants to see is, Strathmore's got beautiful green grass and Calgary's dried up and brown. So we want to stay consistent with everyone to ensure that, all citizens of Alberta feel like they're being treated equally. So what are our next steps? Public communications have started. You may have seen some postings on Facebook and such, just to kind of give an idea of drought, where we're at, what maybe could be seen in the future. We're continuing partner consultations. So as part of the drought action plan, there are regular meetings between municipalities, the irrigators, and the province that are happening. And then there's the decision points. Do we enact water restrictions? At what point do we enact those water restrictions? So with that, if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
I have Deputy Mayor Langmaid first, and then Councillor Mitzner.
Thank you very much. I have a couple questions for you. The first question I have is, would we ever consider implementing or increasing the water use restriction level that we have in place without direction from the City of Calgary? Would we ever go over and above what they're saying?
Yeah, absolutely, we have that choice. I think that would be a decision that, could be made at any time. However, I would balance it again with the comment that I made, in the opposite. why does Calgary have green grass when we have brown grass? So, it's trying to stay consistent for the purpose of everybody being treated equally, but there is nothing saying that we can't be more stringent than what the city is doing.
Thank you. And then this, I'm wondering if you can help me understand. The one part that I've never really understood is why under stage 2 watering restrictions, it looks like we're being asked to limit our fountains, but I can fill a swimming pool. It seems inconsistent that I can't fill my bird bath, but I could fill my swimming pool.
So the thought process behind that is that a swimming pool, similar to sharing a bath, gets filled once and used many times. A water fountain, generally for decorative purposes, also has a high evaporative process. So something that's likely being filled multiple times over the same period that a pool would be filled. Now, scale-wise, quite different. And that's a decision that could be made in the future about changing that to be a little more appropriate or maybe logical. But at this time, the way that the bylaw is written, that's the way it is.
Okay, I think, just scrolling through, making sure those were all my questions. Thanks so much, Ethan.
Councillor Mitzner.
I'm having flashbacks of Ethan in our swimming pool, but thank goodness I don't have a pool anymore. Okay, so I have a question for future reference. Is there any way we can modify our spray park to recirculate the water, or does a new park have to be established?
So to you, Councillor Mitzner, that is an option. We have looked at it in the past. We do not have to change the current spray park. It would be part of the plumbing system outside of the spray park. So my answer to that would be, can it be done? Yes, and it is a separate project that could be implemented when council sees fit.
Councillor Peterson and then Deputy Mayor.
Ethan, I don't know if you can speak to it, but is there a point in time when the needs of agriculture override the needs of urban residents that kicks into? So at this point, I've been hearing the government talk about that and about setting strategic planning and just thinking about that old saying, pond shrinks, the animals look at each other differently. But just, so there's nothing at this point yet coming down.
Yeah, so to answer your question, Councillor Peterson, human life first, livestock is generally second, and then food production would follow.
So is that formalized in?
I'd have,
I know that I'm hearing it lots, like through media, but
I'm sure it is formalized somewhere. I can't give you an exact
Okay,
reference,
all right.
but that is definitely the order of use that's been shared by the province many times.
Keith Clayton told me the other day, seed in the dust and the bins will bust, so we're good.
Deputy Mayor Langmaid.
Thank you so much, and I found the one question that I was missing in my slides here. So we're all being asked to reduce our, 5 to 10% reduction from previous years, what I'm hearing, 5 at least. How will residents track their performance? Other than looking back at my own water bill and doing the math myself, which as a data nerd I will do, but I can't imagine that many people will do that like I do. So how can residents know how their performance is going?
So Councillor Langmaid, I don't want to say there's an exact science. And the reason I say that is, I look at a family of 4 who for 6 months of the year is a family of 2 because their kids are off at university. So it's hard to compare month to month your usage. So a family like that could choose to do absolutely 0 outdoor watering, and their volumes are probably going to double. So from a house to house, everybody is unique. I think the biggest thing is, understanding how your water is being used. Are you using it as efficiently as possible? And then as a community as a whole, that's where we want to look at, are we reducing our usage across the board? And if we're not, how can we change that practice?
So will there be maybe some updates to the community being like, hey, we've brought it down by 6%, great work, keep going?
I think that could be done, absolutely. I mean, we've been working with the comms department on communications already. I mean, you saw a bit of a preemptive communication here about 3 weeks ago, I believe it was. And so the thought is that, 3 to 4 weeks at a time, we would give an update on where we're at. I mean, obviously, if restrictions are implemented, that would be an immediate notification, but I think to the messaging that you're getting to is, at some point, it would be appropriate to say, good job, that you're doing what we've asked, and thank you for that. So when the time is appropriate, we will do that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that would be helpful for folks knowing that, like, hey, my grass might be brown, but it's working. We're getting there. Thanks so much, Ethan.
Any other questions or comments for Ethan? Thank you for your presentation tonight. We move now to item 10, Councillor Information Inquiries. 10.1, questions between councillors and council statements. Seeing and hearing none, we'll move now to 10.3, question and answer period. 10.4, administrative inquiries. Do we have any tonight, Jonathan? Nope. And 10.5, I don't believe we have any notices of motion. No correspondence tonight, other than what we've seen regarding the Public Works Week. And so we move now to closed meeting. We need a motion to go in camera. Deputy Mayor Langmaid.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd move that council move in camera to discuss items related to Section 24(1)(bi) of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act at 8:02 p.m.
Thank you. All in favor?